Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome back to another episode where we're talking a little bit about the convention. So, conventions. Last week's Democratic convention kind of didn't impress me. It was very much. It felt almost amateurish with the Zoom and the embracing a virtual convention, and it seemed to me closer to the Libertarian convention, but with celebrities and Hollywood than it did a real convention. And so far from what I've seen from the Republican convention, which is not a ton, simply because I just haven't had the time and all that. I have seen some of the speakers, some of the ones that I specifically wanted to listen to from the list. For example, Herschel Walker, Rand Paul, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley. Basically the big speakers who I think people should know. It was very much a more polished product. It still is a more polished product, and I expect that to continue on. It's definitely more scripted than you would expect a Trump event to be, and it's very much on message, and even if that message is kind of all over the place, but I think it seems to be working. I mean, I even saw some clips where CNN was saying that the GOP convention is actually doing well and doing what it needs to be doing, which is very good. And one of the things I'm sort of impressed by is the GOP outreach to non-traditional Republican voting blocs, for example, African Americans, with a lot of black voices. For example, Kentucky's Attorney General, I forget the guy's last name, obviously Herschel Walker, Burgess Owens is going to be speaking later tonight, Vernon Jones, Tim Scott, of course. I mean, Nikki Haley is another great example. And you can see quite a few of the speakers are definitely setting themselves up for a 2024 bid. But the one point about the Republican convention that kind of struck me is it reminded me of something. And you'll notice whenever they talk about stuff, they talk about before the pandemic and before a lot of the stuff, and you may be saying, well, that's an obvious one. They don't want to talk about Trump's handling of the pandemic simply because at the end of the day, Trump doesn't have very good marks on that from the general public. But does he need that, especially when the theme that I seem to be getting, regardless of what the Republicans say it is, the theme that I seem to be getting from the way they're handling this, is a return to normalcy, which, as a historian, I guess I should explain where that comes from. And that's from the 1920 Republican platform. I think I tweeted about that the other day, saying that that's what the convention is reminding me of. Obviously, I wasn't alive back then, but as somebody who studied history, it definitely reminds me of that feel in that effort. The other thing I've noticed in polling that's been released with periods from after last week is Biden didn't get a convention bounce at all. And in fact, it looks like it's more accurate to say that Trump got Biden's convention bounce. Whether or not that's the case is a different story altogether. We'll see what happens, but it seems that Donald Trump is improving within the polls. Actually, just to give proof, let's go over here. this is a significant improvement over the past couple of weeks. That's almost a point. And if we go from the previous full month, goodness gracious, that's almost 2 full percent and almost a 3% swing in approval rating just in a month. And we're talking about higher than quarter two, which had some reasonably decent polling for Trump, but also some very bad polling for Trump. Not quite the quarter one levels where Trump was soaring, but you can also look at this and notice that it's a full percentage point higher than his best week in August so far, and his current week is well above where he's been polling for most of August and July, and almost a full point above where he's been for the rest of for the second quarter. So Trump is definitely improved, and if we go to the national polls, this is a little bit different. Oops, that needs to go away. Sorry about that. Where it's remained fairly steady, if we're 100% honest with this, which is interesting, but there's a lot of undecideds again this year, which could absolutely make all the difference. So we'll obviously see what happens. Let's go back to the map. This is what the model currently is showing, and it's actually underestimating what, say, Nate Silver is showing, but I think that's just because my model still is operating off of a lot of 2020 polls from the middle of this year, up to August, where Trump was in effectively a free fall. But yeah, I think that return to normalcy message can be extremely effective, where Republicans are like, listen, we had everything under control, we were doing extremely well, and then a pandemic hit, and anybody is going to suffer in a pandemic. You trusted us for 3 years, reasonably so. You thought we were doing very well on the issues that matter, on the kitchen table issues of the economy, wages, etc. We were doing very well, and then all hell broke loose. Events outside of our control are not a reason to throw us out of office. Give us another term, and we'll get things back to normal. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We don't need to adjust course once this passes. And that's what Biden and Harris are going to do, is they're going to drastically change America. We just want to return America to the way it was before the pandemic, before the chaos. And that can be a very strong message, because contrary to what people will say, they don't like change. They don't know what type of change they want. And people just want a normal, stable situation. A Biden-Harris ticket, the Republicans are painting as a ticket that isn't going to give you a stable America. Especially considering Biden and Harris, their record on crime, their record in the Middle East. This is the argument the Republicans are making, not myself. The record on crime, Biden's record in the Middle East, as well as the more radical voices in the Democratic Party, such as AOC and Ilhan Omar and a few others, as well as trying to tie Biden to very unpopular figures within the Democratic Party, including those I mentioned, as well as Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. So, absolutely, the Republicans seem to be knocking their convention out of the park, which is absolutely something that needed to happen. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. If you like the content, likes, comments, subscriptions always help. I do have a Patreon, and I do use Twitter somewhat now. um, anyway, likes, comments, subscriptions always help, and I greatly appreciate each and every one of y'all, and every comment, every subscriber. We recently hit 470. I'd love to hit 500 fairly soon. We'll see what happens. Certainly by the election. I like that. I'm pretty sure we'll get it. But anyway, I want to thank everyone so much. Have a nice evening. I'll see y'all next time.